In this world, everyone stands up for their own understanding, believing they are right. They're dogmatic in the face of contradictory information. But if everyone thinks they are right, does that mean everyone is? Can both be right? Both be wrong? Only one correct? What is truth? Is there any such thing? The problem isn't intelligence. The problem is bias. See, the people who know the least are often the loudest. This was described in the Dunning-Kruger effect. Dunning said, "The skills you need to produce a right answer are exactly the skills you need to recognize what a right answer is." End quote. If we do not learn how to learn, we are doomed to forever determining for ourselves right and wrong. If we do not learn how to learn, we will always choose for ourselves internally right and wrong. People are confident, not because they've reached the summit of truth, but because they stopped halfway and built a camp called personal truth. Truth is an infinite mountain peak, forever to climb. It's not a destination. Infinities appear in all sciences. Those who wish to take the journey often fail to even consider what that means. Do you start with a first principle? Is that first principle biased? We all start with the same maps. Scripture, naturalism, logic, evidence, subjectivity, objectivity. But most interpret through their own selves, believing truth comes from within, from their own worldview or upbringing. They say, "This is what it means to me. This is my truth." That's the same error from the Garden of Eden. Or for the naturalists, the same error Franz Reichelt made when believing he created the first parachute and was so confident in his invention he jumped off the Eiffel Tower. He left a 6-inch impression in the frozen solid ground. God, or gravity in Franz's case, said, "You will die." Man said, "I'll decide that for myself." That is personal truth. The ultimate idol of man is himself. When people encounter objective truth that conflicts with what they already believe, the brain rings an alarm called cognitive dissonance. Most people silence this alarm with confirmation bias. They seek comfort instead of correction. They say, "This is what I believe," or "This is my conviction." Then they often claim, "You don't know what you're talking about," often including ad hominem fallacies. But truth doesn't care what you believe. Gravity or God does not need you to validate it, to exist or not. Whether a concept is a social construct or a fundamental reality of the universe is not your determination to make. Even Scripture warns, there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is death. The Dunning-Kruger effect is in everyone and everything, from science to religion, from atheist to Christian. People who think they know already stop listening. My wife is very patient, and I can attest I speak to all manner of individuals daily on these subjects. And I can count on one hand how many I would subjectively consider open-minded. Yet the allegation is that I'm the closed-minded one in most instances. The truth and the lie both sound the same from the lips of a speaker. We all suffer this same disease, the illusion of understanding, when that understanding is based on convictions. The difference between blindness and revelation isn't information. It's humility. Scripture and history are full of people who face the mirror of truth. Russian physician Alexander Bogdanov believed blood transfusions from the young would vitalize older individuals. After injecting himself with the wrong blood type and a disease, he died through his own personal truth. However, Peter, when denying Christ, he then wept. He didn't hide from dissonance. He let it break him and rebuild him. Timothy Treadwell believed wild bears would not attack him. So in 2003, he and his girlfriend lived among them when they were attacked, killed, and eaten. Job's friends spoke with absolute certainty. But God said they darkened counsel without knowledge. Cognitive humility is the psychological term for what Scripture calls meekness. It's the willingness to say, I could be wrong, and that's how I will discover truth. Not interpret, but discover. That's how I will make my journey productive. That's how you begin the climb. Jesus spoke in parables for a reason. Not to hide truth, but to reveal who really wanted it. He knew most people wouldn't hear, not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't. The proud filter reality through themselves. The humble filter themselves through the intent of reality. The humble allow truth to mold them, not define truth for themselves. That's the difference between those who live rationally and those who only speak through convictions. What if not all of your convictions are accurate? How many throughout human history has that error killed? In my family, we discuss these subjects daily. And recently, my young son posited, if two conflict, then there is no real answer. The postmodernist claim an exception challenges the idea of a universal objective or neutral rule. That the exception is more interesting than the rule itself. And that many rules considered objective are none other than social constructs hiding hierarchical suppressive power plays. But an exception does not disqualify a fundamental law. It is part of the law. If one creates an anti-gravity machine, Does that mean there's no such thing as gravity? Truth is not art, dependent on the opinions of a subjective mind, but rather an infinite external construct that has no concern for your feelings on the matter. There are no two right answers outside preferences. And 100% of the time, there are only two answers to my son's question. Either both are wrong, or only one grounded in objective reality. The moment you stop defending your position and start defending truth itself, you'll begin to see. The subject is irrelevant. Humility is the proper filter. I learned a long time ago to enjoy when I discovered I was wrong. It's not because I wanted to be right, but because every correction is one step further on that journey. A journey of support of truth. That's how you know you're on the right path. Not when you feel certain about any given subject, but when you allow challenge. When you consider you could be wrong. Humility fears nothing. Only convictions fear correction. Truth isn't yours, and it isn't mine. It simply is. Just as he said, I am. And whether or not you want to admit it, we all stand before it. Hence why everyone in my family uses the term at least once a day, I could be wrong. Because truth does not come from us. You don't get to think and feel however you wish. You don't get to interpret or assume others' intent. You don't get to look out for yourself. Your job is to have empathy and show love towards others. And when everyone in a family is following this subjective truth, there is peace, love, and honor in the home. Only the speaker can define their intent, not us. Ask qualifying questions if there are more than one possible meaning of intent. Allow the speaker to speak for themselves. It's not the speaker's responsibility to speak in a manner you will understand. It's your responsibility to understand the speaker. No one made you feel or act the way you did. You chose to. You are responsible for your own feelings and your own actions. You don't have to care what others think. And what makes these subjective truths? One day, there will no longer be someone on this planet that disagrees with these fundamental principles. Every single individual will live in peace and harmony with empathy and love. And there will no longer be selfish, subjective internalizations, framing reality around personal truth. Objective truth is coming. And there is nothing you or anyone else can do about it. Turn away from subjective truth, believing in convictions. Stop being dogmatic, or you will find yourself lost out at sea with no hope of survival. Humility necessitates the perception of I could be wrong, therefore let me listen. Listening isn't just hearing, it's considering, walking the path of another individual to determine whether or not you are on the right path or they. If you do not and you remain dogmatic, you will remain on your false path. It does not matter the subject. A sword is coming. Are you so sure in your convictions now?